And while we have a through line that states authorial intent means dick.
Right.
I don't want to have the same haircut you have, Dad.
Sorry, forgive me. Harry motherfucking Tubman. He'll be crawling to something else.
Yeah, you know.
JK, Rowling, do something else.
Damn it. So was this before or after the poster and you vomiting all over the couch?
For those of you that can't see, Ed's eyes just crossed.
That is fucked up.
But it's not wrong. This is a Geek History of Time,
where we connect nerdery to the real world. My name is Ed Blaylock. I'm a 7th grade world history teacher, teaching in the virtual realm for now while the plague ravages our land here in Northern California. And I'm also the very happily married father of a 2-year-old little boy who in the last 2 days at daycare has learned how to milk a cow and make butter.
You were raising them right, because you're going to need that shit going down the road, Cormac.
Pretty shortly after civilization falls apart sometime in the next, 90 days at this point, looking at the time scale.
Bold of you to assume it's going to take that long.
I've always been a cockeyed optimist that way. So, And who, sir, are you?
I am Damian Harmony. I am a high school Latin teacher. I'm a high school history teacher up here in Northern California. I am a father of 2, one who is by the time we hear this, she has turned 8 and had a family D&D game from across the country by the time we'll have heard this. My son is 10, loves the Clone Wars, and I bought a bow and arrow, and it's coming in the mail, and I need to buy hay from your wife.
Straw.
Sorry. Turkey
straw,
turkey in the hay.
Seeds. Yeah.
So I need to buy that so that we can set up a target behind the house, because I want them to have skills they're going to need. So
in that, by your estimate, something closer to like 65-day window.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's my plan. So, and it's reversible, so it's left and right handed, so I can show them with me, and then I can have them do it.
Mirror.
So yeah. So that's may you live in interesting times is the worst curse I've ever heard. So
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I gotta say the Chinese were really good at that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That understated. There's something about the Confucian tradition of education, erudition, and I don't want to say cynicism, because Confucius was the opposite of a cynic. He was just such a passionate idealist in so many ways.
Yep.
I mean, sexist as all fuck, but immensely idealistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to say cynical. But there's a certain weary, kind of underlying real politic.
Would you say that? Because I've heard Jean-Paul Sartre described as a stern optimist. Would you say that he's that, or just more of a world weary idealist?
I'd say world weary idealist.
Okay.
I don't know if optimist. I don't know if optimist is really appropriate for Confucius based on the admittedly limited reading I've done.
Sure.
I think Lao Tzu was more of an optimist.
Who was not a world weary idealist?
Who would that be?
Pat Buchanan.
No.
No.
Pat Buchanan was a raging asshole.
Yeah, still is.
So, I mean, yeah, shouldn't use past tense in this case.
Well, wishful thinking. You're a cockeyed optimist.
Though we would like to.
Yeah. So you want to jump into the 1990s with me?
Let's by all means jump into the 1990s.
So if you recall,
hold on a second. Let me go put on my swimming cap and my goggles, because that water is filthy.
Yeah. I was gonna say I didn't know you swam
Yeah.
in the 90s.
Yeah, well,
Huh?
you do what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but anyway,
So
Pat Buchanan, raging ass.
The election of 1992 had been a lot more, as we had discussed before. It had been a lot more of a realignment than it had initially been thought. So after the fact, you can look back and go, oh, right, the fault lines go deep instead of like, it's just a thing we'll paper over. The Northeast had a bunch of traditional swing states, which went Democrat and then stayed that way for more than 20 years. The South, despite a few swing states going to Clinton, would forever be Republican states after that. They were red.
Yeah.
With a few exceptions for the first Obama election. So Clinton wins, and the right is aggrieved, and the lines are now drawn. And Newt Gingrich looks at this, and he sees a path to power. Oh, man, that look on your face. He sees a path to power, and it's a fertile field. And he absolutely figures it out. So Newt Gingrich, may his bones be crushed, and
may his blade chip and shatter.
Yeah. And God, I'm remembering Newt Gingrich during 2016 when he said, feelings are facts. And it was just this little rhetorical trick that he did. The fact that people do have feelings is a fact, but that is not what he meant. And he left the door wide open for all the fascism.
Well, okay. So here's the deal. I think a meaningful case could be made that Gingrich is the Goebbels of our particular moment in time.
Yeah. Bodily, he's much more the
Goering.
Yeah, but
but
intellectually, I think you're absolutely right.
Intellectually speaking, I think Gingrich being a university professor and having those intellectual bona fides and his outlook on the great game.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing that, you're really salient, actually, because of what I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
So he and Dick Armey.
There's a name, huh?
Jesus, yeah. And there's also Colin Powell. Like, it just...
Yeah.
Yeah. But Dick Armey cribbed a bunch of stuff from Ronald Reagan's State of the Union speech of 1985. And then they took a bunch of that and combined it with things that the Heritage Foundation think tank had come up with. And they came up with something called the Contract with America. And this was their response to the victory of Bill Clinton. Now, say what you will about both parties, but I got to say, when the right loses, they jump into that game. Like, they're like, The left is a coalition, force, and the Democrats are especially bad at this. But they respond to polls, and the right, they move polls. Like, it's wildly different.
Well, I think a big part of it has to do with the fact. I mean, again, as you point out, the left is a coalition kind of entity. It's a conglomeration of a whole bunch of different movements.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of different interest groups and a whole bunch of different all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The right, certainly in this country, and I think kind of universally, the forces that we identify as rightist, which is to say, wanting a powerful centralized government, wanting liberality in terms of markets, pushing for a free market and lack of regulation of business, but wanting to have lots of control of individual citizens.
Yes. Corporatism. Those forces are united by the fact that they are all across the board, they all have that core set of interests, and we're talking about industrialists, and we're talking about people who are ideologically authoritarian, who have a dim view of humanity, or at least of the unwashed masses, and want to keep everybody under control. Typically gaslit by their own privilege.
And and then yeah, and as you mentioned, privilege, the privileged classes of society that tend to make up the right.
They also want to make up the rules so that they can stay
they-
in.
Yeah,
And
precisely.
there you go.
They
Yeah.
they want to reinforce that, and so that motivates them very strongly when they see that their position, or when they perceive.
Yes.
I don't want to say see. I want to say when they perceive that their position is somehow threatened, or their privileges, or their perquisites.
I want to add a little word in there before you say
Okay.
position. Their rightful position in their mind.
Yes. Yes.
There's
Yes.
a level of
Yes.
that. Like, this is mine. How dare you?
Yeah. Yeah. They
Because then they can be victims.
yeah. Oh, immensely. And so they take that victimhood onto themselves, and they are galvanized
Yes.
for varying reasons, but to the same ends.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really
When
good,
stuff like this happens,
and they're very brand specific. Like
and they're immensely brand specific, and they I remember in the 90s, dimly, because it was a long time ago, but when I was a callow youth, growing up in a Reaganite household, as we've talked about in the past, one of the things we always talked about, one of the things I always heard, I won't say that we talked about, but when politics came up, one of the things that always got mentioned was, well, Democrats, people on the left, liberals, whatever term you want to use, are so tied up in, identity politics, and they got to be African American, they got to, we got to label everybody, we got to be hyphenated American. And what it took, getting away from my parents and being in the working world and having a shit ton of life experience for me to figure out was, man, everything the right does is identity politics. The difference is their identity has been the default.
Yes, and therefore the rightful space.
Yeah, and you talk about rightful, and I've mentioned this before. In January of 1993, my senior year of high school, I stood in my journalism classroom on the day Bill Clinton was inaugurated for the first time, and watched the inauguration there in my journalism classroom, and I seethed because this parvenu, this hick, this shyster was probably a word that occurred to me at the time. Slick Willie, this oil can just used car salesman was taking the oath of office that should have gone to his opponent, that should have gone to Bush,
right?
And there was genuinely this very, very powerful sense of anger and grievance, and it was. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that wasn't just your response. That was the Republican response to Bill Clinton's victory.
Oh yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm saying is I was part of that tribe, and that's. So I have friends now who don't get the conservative mindset in our current day and age. And I'm like, no, I can explain to you. Yeah. Because I was there. Like, I know what this is rooted in. Yeah. And,
And at that time, they had not been the majority in the House and for 40 years. And they suggested. So 92 is not since 52. And Gingrich and Army suggested that if the Republicans became the majority, they'd do a bunch of stuff right away. And this was announced about 6 weeks before the midterm elections. Like, imagine having just a short 6-week election cycle. And that was, in 94. Gingrich and the Republicans stayed away from divisive topics and only went after things, this is very clever of them, that 60% or more of Americans wanted, and they adopted that into their plank. They promised essentially 8 major reforms, and that they would bring them all to the floor. Okay, and so here's what those 8 are. 1, require all laws that apply to the rest of the country also apply to Congress. So this is idea, and what you're seeing here is the elite there's this divide that they're still playing off of from what Buchanan said. There's the elite and there's ordinary us, right? And so they're like, oh yeah, this should apply to everyone. We are not the elite. This includes us. So really good bunting and trimming on their plank. 2, select a major independent auditing firm to conduct a comprehensive audit of Congress for waste, fraud, and abuse. Which, again, on its surface sounds great, but it's automatically begging the question that there is a shit ton of that going on. You can easily make the argument there was, but I would point out that it was Congress that tried to throw in the Boland Amendment telling Reagan to stop sending money to another country. 3, cut the number of House committees and cut committee staff by 1/3. I have a huge problem with this because I do think that in order to take care of the general welfare, that you should actually be able to expand. But they're talking about cutting it because they have the idea of like, well, let's keep it simple, let's keep it basic, let's pare things down because of the American money.
Well, okay, and one, they commodified it, and the other thing is that you got to remember this is also, I think, the beginnings of the K Street Mafia.
Yeah.
And for those in the audience who don't know what that inside baseball term I just used means, there are a number of very prominent lobbying firms.
Yes.
Most of them conservative leaning, with their offices on K Street in Washington, D.C. And collectively they are referred to flippantly as the K Street Mafia, a term they've actually adopted to refer to themselves in the way that people do. And I don't remember which of them it was, but one of the godfathers of this mafia is famous for having said, "I don't want to eliminate government entirely. I just want to make it small enough to drown it in a bathtub."
That sounds very Manafort, and I know that Manafort was one of the biggest lobbyers at that time. Like, he got it going.
I don't think it was. It was some other guy. Yeah. Off the top of my head, anyway. But so the thing is, it's really convenient for them to frame this as this. Hey, we're gonna simplify things. We're gonna streamline everything. When from the very beginning,
right?
Like. What they didn't mention to most of the American people, and the thing that got left out of the question that could have would have shifted the needle in terms of level of support is they're doing that not merely to simplify things and streamline things and make things easier to handle. They're doing it because no, we want the government not doing shit.
Right, because if they don't regulate, then they don't regulate us and our friends. By the way, it was Grover Norquist that said it.
Thank you. So, because who else, right?
4, limit the terms of all committee chairs, which I go back and forth on term limits. 5, ban the casting of proxy votes in committee. 6, require committee meetings to be open to the public. All right, cool.
All right.
7, require a 3/5 majority vote to pass a tax increase. Now, that sounds like a great idea until you realize tax increases typically can help money get to the poor. So,
okay. No, from an ideological, redistribution standpoint, number one, yes. But strictly from we've got a country to run, assholes, kind of level. Like, okay, we have to make sure the Canadians don't come over the border and kill us all.
Yes.
We have to, maintain our infrastructure. We need to make sure that goods, if you're such a fucking capitalist, this is what continues to boggle my mind about people who say they're fiscal conservatives. But they don't want to spend any money on capital improvement projects.
Right, the things that would actually grease the skids really well.
The things that would actually grease the skids real well. And and it should be something, and it is, at least, when people are talking about it, and on paper, everybody says, well, yeah, we want to support infrastructure, da da da. But the moment you say, well, we got to raise the money somewhere, all of a sudden, everybody with an R in front of their name is like, well, we're not going to raise taxes to do it.
Right. Which is funny because by this point, taxes had, on the top earners had shrunk by 2/3.
Oh, yeah, because we're post Reagan, so yeah, all of that has been chopped to the bone, and yeah, so.
And the final step they wanted to guarantee, and the final reform was to guarantee an honest accounting of the federal budget by implementing zero baseline budgeting. So again, you have to justify and fight for and scrape everything, and it becomes a zero-sum game instead of like, hey, this is a good idea, we should really invest in this. What's it going to cost us? It's going to cost us some money, but we really need to invest in this.
Which the thing is, anybody who knows the inside baseball of economics and knows how economists actually talk to each other and how policy wonks actually talk about this stuff. What they're actually saying is we're not going to do kinds anymore.
Right.
We're not going to do Keynesian. We're not going to do prime the pump.
Yeah.
Keynes. Sorry.
That's okay.
We're not going to do Keynesian anymore.
Right.
We're gonna they have this idea, and I don't know where exactly it started, because Eisenhower didn't do this. Teddy Roosevelt certainly fucking didn't do this.
No.
But Republicans somewhere along the way got the idea that you could run the federal government of the United States the way a family runs their budget at home.
Well, it's a really easy metaphor. And metaphor is good for ideology because they are the family-based thing. And by the way, the family-based thing is inherently patriarchal, especially at that time, with the father as the overlord and everyone else is working for the benefit of the family. And it keeps the woman in the home. Like it all ties into their ideology. That idea of family values is, I think, quite honestly, very much inherently what you can find in Mein Kampf. Like the idea, and I'll even go back further. You can find it in Otto von Bismarck's Blood and Iron, because he talks about the soil and the blood in the soil, and it's the folk, and it's all that kind of stuff. And it starts with the family and the family unit, and that's where a man has his control, and that's what they base their society on. And that is inherently, anytime I hear somebody saying family values, I know where they would have stood when people were being carted off. So, yeah. So this guy won. This method won and set about with this legislative effort. And it's not uncommon, by the way, for people to get a little bit sticker shock and then vote the other party in when someone else wins, but it was brought about partly due to the culture wars. And that's really important, because now they've got a button that they can push every time to get past people's like, well, I made more money before. And it's like, yeah, but you want them gays to be gay?
But you want them gays running things?
Right. And
you
so
want
it's
them,
like,
you want them to make your girl kiss other girls?
Right. So
want them to force a boy into your daughter's bathroom?
Right. Yeah.
Never mind the fact it wouldn't actually be a boy; it'd be a trans girl. But whatever, redneck.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And so there was also an icon in the White House that they could point to in order to stoke that same culture war. And this was also partly because, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, but early on, it just like looking back, I laugh at the absolute fuckery involved in that, because it's Uncle Billy.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake. The guy that they're pointing to as, leftist shaitan incarnate.
Right.
is I mean, he's an incredibly intelligent guy, and he is immensely educated, but he's a past master at playing a good old boy, and his whole external, like his whole persona was so very, like, it was part of what I detested about the man so much at the time, was he he outwardly was just such a complete Arkansas hick,
Mm-hmm.
and they were able to flip that around
Yeah,
and turn him into this figurehead of they want to force abortions on everybody, and they want to I mean, just all of the
Mm-hmm.
like, no, like, do you see who it is they're pointing to? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, if there's any president in the modern era that I could actually imagine drinking moonshine out of the back of somebody's truck,
Yeah.
like, is there anybody else you could imagine? Like, no, Bill
Right.
Clinton, like, done. And yet,
He's the elite. We're the ordinary
he's
ones.
he's the elite.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, yes, he was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually,
But he's a
he
bootstrapper.
was.
Like, he's straight up
Yeah,
bootstrapped himself.
he came from a trailer park, essentially,
Oh yeah.
in his childhood. Child of a single mom. I mean, he should be.
Mm-hmm.
The right's wet dream in terms of white guy from what is now a predominantly red state, who bootstrapped himself into the highest office of the land. He was
Mm-hmm.
what Donald Trump wishes he could rewrite his biography to actually be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. So the other factor besides this icon that would stoke the culture war despite it being inherently contradictory to reality. And by the way, I don't think that's accidental. I think that ability to recreate reality to what you want, that's what I'm talking about. They move the polls. But the other thing that that enabled this was the fact that power mattered a lot more to Newt Gingrich as its own end. And as a result, this effort leads to Republicans getting control of both the House and the Senate. So in 94, they may not have had the presidency anymore, but now they have the legislature. And they set about using it the best way they could. Okay, so that's 94. 95 comes. And with 95 comes a bunch of really culture war-y sounding legislative efforts, okay? The use of language becomes more severe, and it sets a tone of absolutism with its morality. So here's a few things that they tried to pass, okay? The Fiscal Responsibility Act. Sounds good. Sounds good. Begs the question, but sounds good. Requires a 2/3 vote to pass an unbalanced budget. It's interesting that they're now asking for that with a Democrat in charge, and there's no Cold War to spend oodles and cash on. And it also didn't pass, by the way. Did I mention that this was supposed to be an amendment to the Constitution?
No, sir.
Yeah.
I had blocked that from my memory.
Mm-hmm. The next one is the Taking Back the Streets Act.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
So that one is where you build a
Super
whole lot.
predators.
Oh, yeah, that too. You build a whole lot more prisons. You provide more police. You loosen restrictions on evidence gathering. And you make the death penalty a lot more death guarantee-y. So you Texasify the rest of the country. The Personal Responsibility Act. Oh, you like that, didn't you?
Fuck these guys.
This cut cash and welfare programs in order to discourage teen pregnancy and out-of-wedlock birth. Now, I'm no scientist, but science kind of shows, and I'm no economist, but economics kind of shows that if you give money to the lower groups on the socioeconomic ladder, on the especially on the economic ladder, you give them that money, they actually rise up, and it helps everybody. Turns out when you go from the ground up, it all springs up.
Well, I want to say I think it was Will Rogers, who I'm trying to remember. I think it was Dewey off the top of my head who first tried to give this, who in running against Truman tried to push something like supply side economics, and Will Rogers said at the time, this doesn't make any sense because for a fact, if you give a poor man $1, it's going to wind up in a rich man's pocket by the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But if you give any money to the rich man, it's just going to stay right there, or words to that effect.
Yeah, yeah.
And that money trickles upwards. It doesn't trickle, and he's the one who actually came up with trickle down economics. It's going to trickle down to the rest of us, but that's not how it works. And he said, give the money to the little guy, and it's going to wind up in the rich guy's pocket by the end of the day anyway.
Yeah.
And it's
which frankly it completes the cycle because you tax the rich guy at a much higher rate, not so he's hurting, but so you give it to the little guy so he can then give. It's almost like capitalism isn't a necessary thing. It's just this thing that we put on top of everything. Because well, anyway, we could have Star Trek, but you all want predatory capitalism. So the personal,
I'll quibble about whether or not we could have Star Trek, but I think we'd wind up with the culture first. But anyway.
So the Personal Responsibility Act also prohibited welfare to mothers under 18. It denied AFDC. Do you remember AFDC?
I do.
Aid for Families with Dependent Children, which was later turned into TANF, which is Temporary Aid and something. I've got it written down somewhere else. It denied that to mothers who have more kids while they're on welfare. So, you were fucking for fun? Sorry.
Well, okay, so it's
and it goes back to the Reagan idea of like welfare queens, by the way.
Totally.
Which is a complete and total sham and a canard, and it wasn't fucking true.
It's a fiction. Yeah. But what I wanted to say was I remember at the time getting into an argument about that, all of that, from my very male, very middle class white guy standpoint, with a female friend who was an on again, off again girlfriend during high school and then into college. But getting into a really, really heated argument where, she pointed out, what hadn't occurred to me, which was, you're literally taking money away from poor children. Mm-hmm. You're literally starving little kids. Mm-hmm. And that was the first window, I think, that got opened into my own outlook on the rest of the world. Was having it put to me that pointedly, and then seeing. I remember there was a political cartoon that showed Newt Gingrich, telling a woman with several children hanging around her, well, you had them, they're your problem, right? And the kids are crying and hungry, and and he's got the whatever the title of the bill, the
Personal Responsibility Act,
Personal Responsibility Act, rolled up in his hand in the cartoon. I was like, yeah, that's not a good look.
No.
Like,
it also gave food vouchers instead of cash to women. So this is limiting where and when they could spend it, which is limiting where they can go, which is just, again, you're impoverishing these people more. Created a 2 years and out system for welfare. Lifetime limits to 5 years on AFDC, later TANF. And it passed by a slim margin in the House and overwhelmingly in the Senate. Clinton vetoed it, but then in 96, he passed another law. Like, he signed off on another one. The next one is the Common Sense Legal Reform Act. Again, listen to these words, right? In an effort to limit the amount of frivolous lawsuits, these are the ones that piss me off because it absolutely fucks the little guy. This act put restrictions on punitive damages, and it weakened product liability laws, and it instituted the loser pays provisions for court cases.
Every one of your safety regulations is written in blood.
Yeah.
Is a line that comes to mind here.
Yeah.
The woman in the McDonald's case.
Oh, that's like, yeah.
Suffered 3rd-degree burns. Not only that, But before she was burned,
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's was aware of the fact that their practice of serving to-go coffee at such an immensely hot temperature
Yep.
had caused damage to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And, despite the huge award that was given out to her by the jury at the time, because, apparently the photographs of the burns she suffered were a complete horror show.
Yes. And they're on the insides of her thigh. It required skin grafts and
awful. I mean, massive
Mm-hmm.
medical bills that she needed to get compensated for, and she wound up walking away with significantly less money at the end of it, and then that case wound up getting taken and turned into the marching song.
Which is again the second time
Yeah.
they're like, hey, let's do a reform that fucks things over, and by the way, let's use a woman as an example, because the same thing with the welfare queens. But it was the marching song for anti-frivolous lawsuit,
tort reform.
Yeah,
and I remember when I went to get my paralegal certification, taking torts as a class. It's one of the required law classes I had to take. And the otherwise, I'm going to say classically conservative in not MAGA hat wearer, but generally like 70s Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of instructor that I had in that class.
So the silent majority type.
Yeah, silent majority type.
Mm-hmm.
She was clearly affected when she talked about that case and when she talked about tort reform.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, well, okay, if she's this pissed off, then considering the source, there's got to be something going on here.
Yeah.
And anybody who is actually a legitimate tort attorney is going to tell you that's not how this ever worked.
Right.
Yes, there are people who file frivolous lawsuits, but there were already mechanisms. There have been mechanisms in place.
And it's one of those, if you look at the slice of the pie that is those, it's insignificant compared to the amount of good that actually allowing the little guy to sue the big guy for the fact that the Pinto blew up, stuff like that. The Senate went against this, by the way, and Bill Clinton vetoed it, but a similar bill gets passed over his veto a year later.
Yeah.
Now, there's more, but you get the idea here, right? And notice how nicely this is being sold to the people. It's, again, I'll go over the names of what we just did. The Fiscal Responsibility Act, the Taking Back Our Streets Act, the Personal Responsibility Act, the Common Sense Legal Reform Act. And it's everybody who is in favor of it is the same people that it's actually fucking over. But it sounds good. Branding absolutely matters, and Gingrich captures this, as did Buchanan. They capture a brand and they run with it, because those same ordinary Americans wanted plain-spoken traditional values that aren't driven by liberals and elites. So even if it's fucking them over, well, I can understand that. I could have a beer with that guy, Meanwhile, when in fact they wouldn't let you within 10 paces of them, but
well, no.
The economy that Clinton had inherited was broken by Reagan. It started to get repaired by Bush, and then Clinton took the baton and really ramped it up, actually.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton and Al Gore weren't considered real Southerners, despite the fact that they were really from the South and really had Southern accents.
Tennessee and Arkansas, for God's sake.
Ooh, boy. Both Confederate states.
Let's take a moment to just say Arkansas and Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about Louisiana and Alabama. This isn't like deep South, but
this is Southern.
Still, this is Bible Belt Southern. And
And Clinton was really similar
Yeah.
to demographically to these audiences too.
Oh, yeah.
But Gore was considered the rich man on the hill. He was a career politician. His dad had been a politician. He had a huge tobacco farm. All of that's true.
Oh, yeah. Plantation owners, yeah.
Yeah. However, neither man was considered Southern by 1996 when the NWO took over WCW.
And now we get back to the wrestling.
Yes. Now here's why. Clinton was from Arkansas, like you said. It's a deeply Southern state, culturally and mentally. And I don't mean that actually as an insult. It just, that's their mentality. They identify themselves as the core of the South, you know?
Well, yeah, well, and you know, going back to what we talked about regionalism, all the way back to, you know, talking about regionalism in wrestling and all of that, you know, religiously, Arkansas is very much in the same Pentecostal cathartic Christianity.
Yep. Bloodletting.
Bloodletting and you know, the idea of you know, just having revival meetings.
Yeah. Vengeance matters.
And,
you know?
Yeah. And well, vengeance, you know, and the cathartic redemption moment of being reborn, of being born again.
Right.
You know,
it's a cataclysmic event.
It is not something you work toward. It is something that you maybe hope for, and then it either happens for you or it doesn't happen for you. And it's this, again, bloodletting and all of that.
Well, and if you look at the wrestling in that era, very bloody. Like, I'm sure you remember guys named the Bushwhackers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about him. We mentioned him briefly, talking about Serenity.
Yeah, that's right. They were previously known as the Sheep Herders, and they were one of the bloodiest. Like, you go back and you look at the Bushwhackers, zoom in on their foreheads, and you'll realize, oh, that's a shit ton of scar tissue, because they had the bloodiest matches in that.
Oh, from palming a razor blade.
Yeah. So,
I'm proud of myself for knowing that detail.
As you should.
I just want to say, you know,
kudos to you for that.
Having picked that up, I've been learning.
So Bill Clinton came from fairly poor folks, but his family also had a really long history of being cool with people of all races in the South. And his grandparents would sell on credit to anyone who needed. Did not matter their race. He had deep roots in believing in racial equality. He'd memorized the "I Have a Dream" speech. He memorized it, and that's a long fucking speech. Despite being from the South, his intelligence and his ambition carried him all over the world. He went to Georgetown University until he graduated from there in '68. He got a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford, and I think he was one of the first because it was a guy from Arkansas. And he went to Oxford. He didn't finish his post-grad degree there, which was actually really common for people in his age cohort at that time. He came back to the U.S. figuring that he'd have to deal with the draft. Although he'd received educational deferments in '68 and '69 because he was being educated in Oxford, and he was taking part in rallies against the war because he saw that this is a dangerous and terrible war. He was one of the Southerners without being one of the Southerners.
Okay.
And then he went to Yale. See? Mm-hmm. Yale, which is the place where nobody from the South would ever go. Nobody would ever trust anybody who came from Yale. Like, imagine somebody from Yale, like, and like having like grown up in the South. But I'm sorry, who?
Bush.
Oh yeah, but that's the older Bush. I mean, he came from like money in Connecticut, and so he's not
W.
Yeah, but no, he's from Texas. That's hardly the South. W. I mean, really, it.
Are you fucking kidding?
Yeah, that's he did go to Yale. You're absolutely right.
How much did he play up his bullshit Texas accent?
Yeah,
and his desperately wannabe Ronnie Reagan cowboy.
Yeah,
like, come on.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah. So
and his come to Jesus moment after having been a massive party boy, coke fiend, alcoholic. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he went to Yale.
Yes.
Now,
But he's one of us because I could have a beer with him. It's
No,
this
you couldn't.
weird fucking.
No,
I
you
know.
couldn't. He's recovering from alcoholic. No.
Yeah. Well, and he wouldn't have like partied with common folk. Like he's.
No, he wouldn't have partied with common folk because on top of everything else, he's a Bush.
Yeah.
They're as close to
3 generations of money. His
general yeah, they're as close to genuine aristocracy as anybody in this country gets.
Actually, even closer, I would say, because his grandfather helped hide Nazi money and helped get going the businessman's coup. So there's that.
What's an attempted coup
Right.
amongst upper class friends? I mean, really.
It really is a good point.
And if we're gonna talk about anybody hiding Nazi money, having ties to Nazis, we're gonna have to bring the Kennedys in too.
True.
I mean that cuts across both aisles. That's
true.
Like
That's
we
true.
gotta get totally Karl Marx on that because that's a class thing. But anyway, continue.
Okay. So
I just had to say fucking Bush.
yes.
Like if you're gonna talk about Yale, come on.
I seeded that just to see.
I know. I know. So does the audience. I know, but I had to.
So Clinton got his Juris Doctorate. He's not a lawyer, but he did get the JD. And because he knew he was going to go into public service, and eventually he would land back in Arkansas. I had to cut a whole bunch of stuff out about his courtship with Hillary. It's adorable though.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you there.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you right now, if you're going to tell me that you're going to talk about all the reasons why he wasn't considered really a Southerner.
Oh, I'll get there.
You're not going to include marrying Hillary.
No, I'm going to get there. I'm just not going to talk about their courtship because this is
All right.
Okay. So he becomes the second youngest governor of Arkansas ever. I think he was like 34, 36, something like that. He was a political mover and shaker from very early on, and he was a force in the Democratic Party for quite a while. He was also as centrist as they come. You see, you could be in the South, you could be a Democrat if you were a centrist. And he helped people economically, but he also pushed for reforms of assistance programs. So essentially, he's helping poor white folk and putting a visible cap on poor people of color, and that's what's getting him votes. He fought for, at the same time, social equality, but he also fights to deregulate businesses. So there's this wonderful thing that I heard once. A friend of mine who lived in the South, she said, Damian, the difference between Californians and Tennesseans is that Tennesseans don't mind having black people for neighbors, but they don't want them as their leaders. And Californians don't mind having black people as their leaders, but they don't want them for neighbors. And it was way truer than I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Having lived in both places. It's
Yeah.
So he's playing both sides in a lot of ways. He was good for the economy. He was good for business. And on several fronts, he was good for the marginalized. He wasn't going to get them all the way there, but he would set an environment from which they could jump further, perhaps. But by 96, the South is fully convinced that there is a culture war on and that Bill Clinton was the godhead of the opposite culture. He was part of an internationalist New World Order, NAFTA, that would come in with its northern values and make a mockery of tradition and all that was good. They had plenty of ammunition. First, there was talk radio. Big in the 90s. Bill Clinton was the best thing for talk radio because despite the fact that the Republican Party had gained control of the entire legislature, they still had a president whom they could focus on and drum up their base with. And since and since he had the same affliction as Kennedy did, being a lech, it was really easy to whip up culture war fury against Clinton because good, ordinary people stick to their wife, sister. And this is Arkansas. And yet the economy was also going well. So it's this weird thing of like, okay, that guy, I really hate him. Can you name a reason? Because he fucks other women. Okay, cool. but he's also really good for the economy. How do you answer to that? My brain exploded, and that's,
Yeah.
and people have to choose whether to
Well,
vote
and-
for their own good or for a guy that they hate.
And there is the underlying idea that anything he tried to do to help anybody in the working class was going to people who were not deserving.
Yes.
This is part of the fetish of Rush Limbaugh and everybody in that ilk.
Yep.
Nowadays it's more Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly.
Right.
But there was all of this. I mean, now if you go back in the Wayback Machine and you go to the archives of the Rush Limbaugh show, the shit that came out of that guy's mouth was so blatant. I mean, to us nowadays, it was just so blatantly racist.
Now you're talking about a Medal
is.
of Freedom winner. All right. I will not have you just
fuck that with a cattle prod. No, I'm sorry. Any such award given by the current junta is going to need to be reviewed by a panel after this is all over. Because, I don't care if it's the Congressional Medal of Honor. Any award given by this president is suspect at best.
Oh yeah.
Especially something like the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the closest thing we have in this country to a knighthood, which is a token, symbolic, cultural. No,
you've had a wonderful impact on our culture, and that's Rush Limbaugh has that. Yeah. So
I'm not done.
Oh, okay.
God damn it, I'm not done. The stuff that came out of his mouth. I mean, he got away with it in the 90s because it was 30 years ago. But no, seriously, it was blatantly racist.
Yep.
His characterization of Jesse Jackson, anytime he talked about him, was disgusting.
Yep.
And the only reason I wasn't disgusted by it at the time was because I was only just recently starting to come out of my shell from being, slightly to the right of Genghis Khan. and nobody was really saying, man, that's ugly and racist. Because the way in which we had that dialogue hadn't evolved to what it is now. But and it was always in these terms of they're just going to give money out to everybody and these people who aren't deserving. And again, like you say, it was all rooted in the welfare queen myth, and it was all built around the same issue that's been pointed out, that lower class, lower financial order, white people in this country tend to have, especially in the South and those regions, which is, any assistance I'm getting because I need it and I deserve it. But my next door neighbor over there, he's a lazy fuck and he doesn't deserve it. And he's
not one of us. He's not a real American.
Well, I'm not even talking about if it's somebody of a different color or a different race or a different anything. I'm just talking about if your next door neighbor is getting stuff, he's a lazy so-and-so, but I deserve this. The selfishness
I see what you're saying.
Coalesces really strongly around race, but it isn't just race. It really does granulate in way too many cases down to, I deserve this, but that motherfucker doesn't.
Okay.
It's the dark side of the independent streak of the Scotch Irish. Taken to an extreme of not having any fucking empathy for anybody.
Yeah, I deserve salvation. Y'all can go to hell.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And it is a fetish for so many people on the right end of the aisle that, people who aren't deserving are going to get this. Well, okay, but what about all the people who are deserving who need it? Well, we can't have it. It's more important that we make sure that people who, we don't want to be giving anybody a handout.
Right. It's like, okay, but if we show you that economically it's actually better, doesn't matter. And that's what kills me, is it's divorced from reason. So you have Bill Clinton being able to be the icon that they can whip up their people against, and at the same time, he's actually good for the economy, and he's good for the Republican legislature to get their shit through because he's such a centrist.
Yeah.
Secondly, there were tremendous changes happening in our culture. In 1992, Planned Parenthood versus Casey was decided. Now, this is not on Clinton's watch, but it's so close to it that everybody just kind of absorbed it. And they thought, it's one of those, even though it's worked its way through the courts for 6 years, it happened on his watch kind of thing. So even though he hasn't necessarily put anybody on the court yet, he gets tagged with it. And this is the case that essentially reaffirmed Roe versus Wade. And it implemented the undue burden standard, which is the one standard that, quote, has the purpose or effect of placing a substantial obstacle in the path of women or of a woman seeking an abortion of a non-viable fetus. Essentially what it says is that it cannot be allowed to restrict a woman's access to abortion. So this is what they talked about when they talked about abortion on demand. That was in the summer of 92. Clinton is not elected yet. It's during the campaign. And Pat Buchanan says a month later that abortion on demand would be what would happen if Democrats won. Well, Pat, it already was decided. It is jurisprudence. It was decided, by the way, by a court that was largely stacked by Ronald Reagan and George Bush, because it's the right goddamn thing to do for citizens seeking liberty. In 1994, Shannon Faulkner enrolled in the Citadel. This is a Southern, I gotta say, I love how many Southern military academies there were and how it meant nothing to the Civil War. Did fuck all for him.
Well, okay, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Any military historian who specializes in looking at those issues will tell you that the officer corps of the Confederate Army, on average, knew their shit somewhat better than the officer corps of the North. Now, here's the deal. So all of those military academies did have an effect. However, the South had no industrial base to speak of. They did not get any international support because they were rightly looked at as assholes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to find other vocabulary to describe it, but
no, I think that works.
I've had enough to drink. I'm going to drop the filter. And in the end, they didn't have the resources. They didn't have the organization, and they didn't have the political unity.
Right.
Because the Union was all doing everything under federal, direction, and the individual state armies of the Confederacy had problems with their command structure. Like, Lee, in Army of Northern Virginia, is depicted as being like this equivalent to Grant.
And in some ways, was he?
Well, in some ways he kind of was, but the amount of actual, like, real authority he had, I mean, if you want to give him credit for anything, the gift he had was that he was able to get these guys to stick with him and follow orders to the extent that they did in the first place, because based on the structure of the way the Confederate military was on paper organized, he didn't have the same kind of authority that Grant did. So, anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic here, but yeah, they had all of these military academies, and it did have an impact, but not enough.
Okay,
is basically what I'm quibbling over. And they still lost, and people can still die mad about it. Big Willie T clearly didn't burn enough shit.
Yeah. So Shannon Faulkner in 1994.
Come at me, Confederate assholes. Sorry.
It's okay.
Carry on.
Shannon Faulkner. She enrolls in the Citadel, which is a Southern military college in South Carolina. So there's a big problem there. She's a woman. and she's the first one to ever try to attend college there, as it was an all-men's college. And since they got state money, they had no right to deny her based on her gender. That was a violation of her civil rights. And it's pretty cut and dry, but consider in 1994 what it represented. Bill Clinton was already the president, and people were openly critical of how smart and active his wife Hillary was.
Yep.
He had appointed a woman as the attorney general, and he had actually tried to appoint 2 other women, but they ended in some very embarrassing problems for him. But Janet Reno becomes his, what do you call it? His
Attorney General. Take no shit, Janet.
Yes. And just a side note for Janet, she died the day before Trump got elected.
Fuck.
No, lucky woman.
No, man, we need her.
Well, yeah, that too. For the first time ever, you had a woman as an attorney general. So, like, people are losing their shit about how womanified everything's become. And she oversaw the disaster at Waco, and she did, and she fucked that up. So the idea of a woman being involved at tough, manly things that had previously been all male was already a problem for a lot of segments of the population.
Yeah.
And then you add on top of that the fact that this is South Carolina we're talking about. There were bumper stickers that showed up all over South Carolina, said 1,952 bulldogs and 1 bitch, because she deigned to try to join a military academy. There were death threats, manly ones, of course. In 1995, a judge ordered that Faulkner be made to shave her head like the other cadets. Despite this not being the actual practice in the actual fucking military. So, like, part of me is like, yeah, y'all should shave your heads if that's the thing. But the other part of me is like, wait, what's the military doing? Y'all should be doing that since you're a military academy. You're prepping them for the military. So what the fuck?
I'm gonna come down as a centrist on this one.
Mm-hmm.
If you are signing on to join that institution, and you know that is the tradition of that institution, then that's part of what you're signing on for. Now, if they made up the idea that everybody has to shave their heads just to try to dissuade her, then that's bullshit. Fuck you all. But they didn't.
Well, what you're also getting into is an all-boys college. So, ipso facto, as a woman, you should not be even trying then, based on that.
I see what you're saying in that regard. I see what you're saying, but I think there are shades of equal rights versus special treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And
you see which side South Carolina is going to come down on.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. I mean, South Carolina, obviously. No, South Carolina, no.
Tell me if this sounds familiar. U.S. Marshals had to escort her onto campus in August of 95. And in a week, she washed out. She did. She got heat exhaustion after 4 hours of physical training, along with 4 other cadets who were men, and they all ended up in the infirmary. When she left, it was because people were vandalizing her parents' house. Someone had threatened, of course in a manly way, to kill her parents. Yeah. The male cadets openly...
Of course they had.
Yeah. The male cadets openly celebrated that she washed out when she had left. I couldn't find any word on their celebration about the other 29 males who also had the same physical problem.
Well, of course you couldn't.
In 1996, the U.S. versus Virginia settled the issue once and for all. Okay, so you had that attempt, and then she couldn't make it. Haha, look at that, women. Janet Reno, she's too manly, and she's not manly enough. It was a 7-1 decision in the Supreme Court that stated that the Virginia Military Institute, all these Southern military colleges, and they still lose the Civil War. They don't have the right to discriminate based on gender. Scalia dissented because, of course, he did.
Scalia.
Motherfucker. The rest of them agreed with Ginsburg, making it a 7-1 ruling. Guess who had to recuse himself because his son actually went to the VMI?
Who?
Thomas.
Wait.
Clarence Thomas recused himself because his son went to the VMI.
Okay, so Thomas recusing himself in the case of some conservative issue. This doesn't surprise me at all. But Thomas's son
Mm-hmm.
attended VMI,
Yes.
an institution that was originally founded specifically to train young men to be militia officers in the event of an uprising by black slaves.
I don't see the problem here. Yes.
Sorry, just my irony meter is kind of,
Yeah.
ticking madly.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
This school was given monies by the state. Okay. So the ruling was that the school...
Uncle Thomas.
Yeah. Oh. Any school given monies by the state or federal government could not discriminate against people who were applying there based on sex. You don't get to.
Yeah.
Women get to go in the military colleges from here on out. The VMI thought about going private, actually, to get around that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, they did. But that would have actually set a really scary precedent. And the Department of Defense said that if you do, the DOD is going to take away all of your ROTC funding from the VMI. So the VMI buckled.
Wow.
Yeah. So Buchanan is here in 1992 talking about a culture war. And traditionally exclusive institutions of education are having to open up. The military no longer being allowed to openly ban gay service members as well. Clinton had originally wanted to follow through on his campaign promise, which he had made, and end the exclusion in the military entirely. There were several studies done to get the opinions of experts on sociology, sexuality, and psychology. Now, when you get experts who are experts about these things, that's really easy to paint them as liberal
elitists.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And within, okay, having been an ROTC cadet my first 2 years of college in 93, 94, and 94, 95, I was kind of seeing this unfolding. And I will say the non-commissioned officer corps of the U.S. Army, if the NCOs who were part of the training cadre at UC Davis were any indication of the broader population as a whole, unsurprisingly, this was a policy that met with very grudging acquiescence. There unsurprisingly, there was a very strong socially conservative streak in the culture of the military, and I think part of the reason the policy turned out to be "don't ask, don't tell," as opposed to no, let them all serve. Period. Is because within the DoD there were concerns that there would be significant unrest.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I'm not saying that's legitimate at all.
No, self-censorship
that's
because
part of
what someone might do is the worst thing you could do for yourself. Make them be the violent pricks and then deal with them accordingly. Yeah. So it's looking, with all these efforts of Clinton to get expertise and stuff like that, it looks like liberals versus ordinary Americans again. It looks like elites versus the rest of us. Clinton receives huge pushback, specifically from the Marine Commandant General Carl Mundy, who was on...
Because it was, of course, the Marines.
Of course it was. Which, I mean, aren't there jokes about why the Marines are on the boats anyway?
No, it's usually the Navy, but yeah.
No, it's because why does the Navy carry Marines on their ships? It's because sheep would be too obvious.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man. I grew up in a Navy household. I never heard that one before.
Well,
Dear
it still
God.
lasts the Navy for fucking sheep.
Well,
like,
but
wow. Being the dominant partner in a homosexual relationship, you're still homosexual. And,
any opportunity to rag on Marines, though, my God.
True.
All right.
True. So Clinton gets pushback from Mundy, and who was at the time on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he did what centrists do. Colin Powell suggested compromise to him. Don't ask, don't tell. And Clinton went with it. But here's the thing. Like, now we look back and we're like, how could you do that? But at the time, it was either that or nothing, because it was too much, because America's fucked. But now and even at the time though, even with Don't Ask, Don't Tell, all the traditionalists are saying, look, this elitist liberal president is forcing gays upon everyone. They're shoving them down our sweaty, waiting throats, and it just, there's so much fucked up fetishization that homophobes have.
So
it's,
and nobody of course in our audience can see it because this is an audio medium.
Yes.
But while Damian was saying his bit about our sweaty waiting throats, there was a back and forth motion going on with a clenched fist in one hand that was just
damn right.
Like one of us is a stand-up comedian, ladies and gentlemen. Can you tell who's who?
So
anyway,
with what Buchanan said in 96,
yeah,
homosexuality is a huge hot button culture war issue. And despite Barry fucking Goldwater, an actual conservative, one that I find alarmingly scary, he said you don't have to be straight to shoot straight. He said
everybody
that.
finds Barry Goldwater alarming.
Yeah.
He's an alarming individual.
Yeah.
This is the guy who advocated using tactical nukes in Vietnam, for God's sake.
Right. And he straight up says, no, look, we looked at the experts and you don't have to be straight to shoot straight. Let's, people want to serve. They get to serve.
Well, here's the deal. The thing is, Barry Goldwater, for all of his being,
Barry Goldwater,
fucking crazy pants, Barry Goldwater was genuinely a conservative.
Yeah, he was an intellectual conservative of
the William F. Buckley, school.
Yeah, who was a huge problem, but yes.
Yeah, but I mean, there's actually principles involved that go beyond I got mine, fuck you.
Speaking of principles, the 2000 Republican platform clearly stated
I got mine, fuck you.
Well, that too. That was on page. That was the back page of the pamphlet.
Okay. Back.
But what it said was, we affirm that homosexuality is incompatible with military service. That was their platform in 2000. George W. Bush endorsed that. And that's the shift that we're seeing, despite evidence, despite expertise. No, expertise, that's a fucking liberal conspiracy. Now us ordinary folks have to deal with that. And that's the shift you see in the mid-90s. With talk radio, culture war, galvanizing people into thinking that their own intransigence was proof of other people polarizing.
Yeah. Well, what it all comes down to is it is the triumph of our innate national anti-intellectualism.
It's the weaponizing of it.
Yeah, well,
and prior to that, you could be an expert and still you could be personally conservative and still vote for very liberal things because it benefited you. That I got mine actually was better back then.
Not only that, but you could be a conservative, and being a conservative meant something different. Being a conservative meant you were not a progress for progress's sake. Let's do this thing because it's new.
Yeah, you cared about social cohesion more than you cared about liberty, which is fine. And that's because that's a trade-off, and I can understand and see where people are coming from with that. I disagree, but I get it. I also studied the French Revolution.
Yeah, you believed that, okay, look, if we're going to make changes, let's make sure that the right changes to make. And if we don't have to make a change, you need to justify to me why we should.
Right.
And that is conservative.
But that also includes
I'm that kind of, deep down in the depths of my soul, I'm that kind of conservative. But the thing is, nowadays that makes me a fucking communist, apparently.
Well, because it includes within it I'm going to get right back to what I was saying.
Okay.
It includes within it a willingness to change based on the evidence. And that intransigence becomes part of the brand. And because I'm intransigent, I am going to, clearly other people are polarizing. Look, now it's two equal sides. It's like, no, you ran to the right and people are saying, where are you going?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
true conservatives with the intellectual backing, like you said, with thinking, are on the wane. Reactionaries are on the wax, on the rise.
On the wax, yeah. Waxy waning.
Yeah. And more importantly, political tribalism is really picking up. And now anything that the Democrat president does becomes fodder for people to run against. And that brings us up to the election of 1996. And that'll bring us back to the NWO taking over in our next episode. But right now, I want to call out to producer George, who has just started playing Dungeons & Dragons with his family. And they just had their very first, I want to say episode. They had their very first adventure tonight. And I'm looking very much forward to hearing how the Rats of Waterdeep went for them.
As am I.
Yes.
As am I.
So we're running hard against the timer. So I'll ask you what you're reading next time.
Okay.
But
sounds good.
Yeah. So I don't know how to end it without asking that, to be honest.
Takeaway.
Social media. Oh yeah. Takeaway.
Yeah.
What have you gleaned so far in a minute or less?
Just how clear in retrospect the path is to where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, up to and including the and I'm going to date us right now by saying this, but the events in Minneapolis in the last few days.
Yeah.
And we hadn't even dreamt of social media existing back in 93, 94, 95. But the shit people are saying is an echo of the kind of shit that people were saying, back then. And, there's a whole rant that I don't know. I might not be able to prevent myself from getting into in our next episode about this, but what you just said a minute ago about the rise of political tribalism and the right literally running to the right and then telling everybody, well, they're being divisive is like, Ronald Reagan, like, honest to God, if Ronald Reagan were to rise from the dead today and look at the Republican Party, he would be gobsmacked.
Do you think so? Because I still don't think he's a very principled person. I think he would say, "Oh, that's where I need to go."
No, here's the deal. I think he would be shocked, not necessarily by the underlying underbelly of the ideas involved, clearly, because welfare queens, but the blatant level of hatred. Everything he did, as ugly as it got, was dog whistled. And
That's true.
he did not ever say anything. He didn't let himself rant the way that our current president does.
That's not a fair comparison. You're comparing somebody who was a very, very selfish and frankly awful human being and an adult to a man baby.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Eisenhower. If we go back further.
Okay, there you go.
If Eisenhower were to try to run for office now, he would be derided as a rhino, and our current president would be campaigning against him actively.
Oh yeah.
And like let's talk about, who's actually a conservative and who is a hateful, racist, white supremacist wacko. If my grandfather, who was a dyed-in-the-wool Republican, voted would have voted for Bush II if he'd been alive to do it. If my grandfather were alive today, he would be ashamed of the man who's in the White House. And my grandfather grew up in Iowa and spent most of his adult life in the South. and carried all of the unfortunate racial biases that implies.
Yep.
But he was not hateful, if that makes sense.
It does. He grew up in a hateful time, and so he had average values for that time. But he was not specifically hateful. He was, I guess, incidentally.
He was institutionally a racist, and he carried negative ideas about people of color, but he I think was happy to see that I didn't carry those prejudices.
Good.
And I think seeing what the Republican Party looks like today, he would be gobsmacked.
Yeah.
As much as he carried those ideas subconsciously, the way that our current president chooses to talk and the way the Republican Party has behaved would piss him off.
And rightly so.
And I mean, but now looking back at what happened in those years, it's now really too obvious how we got where we are. That's it basically.
Okay. Where can people find you to ask you more about your grandfather on social media?
You can find me at EH Blaylock on Twitter, and you can find me at Mr. Blaylock on Instagram. How about you?
You can find me at Duh Harmony, 2 H's in the middle, either on Insta or on the Twitter. You can also find me every Tuesday night starting in June on twitch.tv/Capital Puns, doing my pun show for the 4th year in a row.
Very cool.
And every Sunday, unless technology gets in our way, at twitch.tv. I tell you, twitch.tv /Calling It in the Ring, where we talk about, surprisingly, wrestling.
Indeed.
So, anyway, you can also find us at where?
Geek History Time on the Twitter.
As well as our website, Geek History Time.
GeekHistoryTime.com.
Yeah. Well, until next time, I'm Damian Harmony.
And I'm Ed Blaylock, and until next time, keep rolling 20s.